and then it goes black. Torgal? See the question, Torgal? And then you see the eyes of a dog. It's like the colors are not...
You're right. Oh, I didn't think about that.
Dogs don't have the same color spectrum as humans do. So they see less colors than we do. So in this first-person perspective where he sees Phoenix being picked up by Ifrit and like pounded on and throat torn out and all this stuff, the perspective is a dog's eyes. And Clive is seeing through Torgal. Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name is Kason.
And this is episode 1 of our Final Fantasy XVI analysis.
Ooh,
the game was released today.
Yep.
Lucky for us, a demo was released last week with basically the first 3 hours of the game, which is exactly the right amount of time for a first episode of 1 story analysis to take place.
Now, usually we will do a dev history or something for the episode 1. In this case, we feel like there's going to be a lot more information on the development of this game that comes out later. Mm-hmm. There is some now, and we can bring it up as we play.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we might actually end up doing that one last.
Yes.
That would be fun.
In my sort of history of researching the Final Fantasy games for the retrospective series that I've done, and the version I'm going to be bringing out later on that's even more in depth, it's clear to me that what developers say leading up to a game's release can often be pretty different from when it's post-release and they're reflecting on it. And there's a lot more information.
More honest information.
More honest information. And that's not to say they're being dishonest, but they're trying to sell the game leading up to it. And looking back on it, doing more of a post-mortem, you can get a lot more of the really interesting details. So I'm going to wait on really delving into that, even though there is a lot. There's been a lot of interviews and things like that. We'll wait till maybe the end of the series or just later on in a couple of years or something to really delve into that. So this is the first time we're going to be doing a podcast series where we don't start off with development history and developer interviews. The reason we like to do that first is because it's good to understand where the intentions of the developers were when they were making the game. So that when you're analyzing it, when you're making value judgments and that sort of thing,
critiques,
you can do so fairly. So this part's going to be missing, though. We'll still be doing our very best to be fair to what we think the intentions of the developers were.
Yes. And this is also the first time we're playing a game that just barely came out. And we have no idea how it's going to end. So a lot of, as we go through the story, a lot of, we're just in the dark here. We're completely blind.
Yep.
And so is everyone in the world.
Yep.
So this is going to be fun.
Yeah. So it's the first time that we've done it this way. But I'm excited to see where this goes, and hopefully it'll be fun to play it through for the first time along with the audience. Nobody knows the answers to a lot of the questions we'll have along the way, and that's going to be kind of exciting to search for that, and everybody kind of working together in the comments. That being said, there's not really anything to spoil. We don't know what's going to come, so we may be making guesses at where things go, and who knows if that'll be true, but everybody's kind of on the same page, and that's going to make this series unique from the others that we've done. So, you usually have a lot of notes on the very beginning of stuff.
I do.
So let's hear it.
So, at the very beginning, you get this beautiful line here, right? That is... Oh, who's talking here? It's
this is Clive talking, this is Clive, I believe. Yeah.
But 13, the older Clive, the 28-year-old Clive.
That's the one,
He, and I didn't write down the exact quote.
I did. You want me to read it?
Yes, please do.
Okay. It was Moss the Chronicler who said that the land of Valisthea is blessed in the light of the Mother Crystals. And that it was this light which finally led our forebears out of the darkness. Yet, what they saw in the light gave rise to temptation. Temptation that ever lures us back into the crystal shadow. And thus did our journey begin.
This is Prometheus. This is the Garden of Eden. So they were blessed with light.
Mm-hmm.
And The light led them out of the darkness, right? It gave them wisdom, you could say. It gave them, it was the first piece of technology. It was fire, right? And you think of what fire is. Why was it such a big deal? Like, why did Prometheus give fire? Why was it such a big deal? Fire is the power of the sun, right? And when you can make fire yourself, you have the power that the sun seems to possess, right? Trying to think back a million years, right? It's like, wow, like the sun has granted us the ability to use this fire. And then you play with it for a while and you're like, oh, fire's cool, right? And then you burn down your whole village on accident because you were reckless. And it's like, ooh, that's what fire can do. Okay. Well, I guess villages back when they first discovered fire, maybe they weren't making log cabins or anything. But the idea being that fire hurts. It hurts. It's painful. If it's used wrong, it can kill people. And so this power of the sun that you get, this is very important, what I'm talking about, because as it turns out, the phoenix is a big kind of part of the game. It's not here. The logo of the game is like a phoenix, and then I think Ifrit underneath, right? So you're blessed with light. The light leads you out of darkness, but then what you see in the light gives rise to temptation, right? And that's the power of the fire, right? Wow, this is incredible power. This is the first piece of technology, right? Let's go conquer our neighboring tribes with this. Let's go create pyres and like kill people and execute them using the fire, right? Let's use fire for all kinds of nefarious purposes. And then this says temptation then leads to darkness. And that's kind of the story of what we were just, what was just given to us. This is the cycle of life. You're given light that leads you out of darkness. Then the light itself gives rise to temptation, which brings you back to the darkness, and then you have to rediscover the light again, the true meaning of the light. And then it's manipulated and created and destroys things, and then you rediscover the truth, right? Or the goodness of the light. So Garden of Eden and Prometheus. And what's really cool about this is that the way the game starts out with this, then you see that Phoenix fight. That's the way the game starts, is with that fight. You have no idea what's going on. But it's these fire beings. It's the Phoenix, which is the sun, right? The sun that dies and is reborn. Again. Yeah. And then as the camera kind of zooms out, as this fight is happening, and it's in his eyes, right? And he's looking at a fire. He's looking at a campfire, basically. And you see it reflecting in his eyes, and he's clearly remembering something that had happened in his past, or that he saw in the past. So the connection to fire is clearly there. The connection to Phoenix is absolutely there. And then the Garden of Eden / Prometheus story, it's big. And one of the desires, one of the ideas would be, got to get rid of the fire, right? The fire's too much. Humans can't handle fire. The other one would be like, how can we ever develop the wisdom to correctly handle this type of technology? That's a question that is very prescient today in 2023. As well as it was a million years ago when fire was first discovered. So that's what that makes me think of at the beginning here.
I also really liked this part of the line that says, temptation that ever lures us back into the crystal's shadow.
The shadow, the darkness, right?
We're talking about how, the story of Prometheus, the reason why this was such a big deal was that it allowed mankind to get one step closer to the gods. And the gods don't want that.
You're right. You're right.
The gods don't want human beings to become more like them. And so, but the temptation, right, of the way that they use it and the power that it possesses, all the bad that can come of it, lures them back into the shadow of the gods.
In their rightful place. Right. According to the gods.
Right. So it's
this is where you belong.
You can't handle this. You see what you've done. You need us.
Yes.
We're the ones who really control the elements. Come back and let us, our shadow be cast over you.
Right.
So the mother crystals are, the analogy here, they're kind of like the gods. That's what the people are dependent upon in this world. And so the people live in the shadow of the crystals.
Yeah, they're governed by the crystals and the fate that the crystals bestowed upon them.
Right. So that's a nice way of framing the world that we're living in. Really succinctly, you've got this like ominous feeling about these crystals, I think, a little bit. They are dependent upon them. They need their blessing to live according to at least the way that they see this right now. But there's some kind of shadow that they're living under by using them in the way that they do, or in depending upon them in the way that they do.
Yep.
And so that's what you need to know. Now let's have the story begin.
It's like they're a slave to their own technology.
Yes.
Right? The technology, it's just 2023.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So in that sense, I really like the theme of the game because it's really relevant.
Yeah.
At least so far.
There is a reason that they keep showing us this red star near the moon. Did you notice that?
I did.
How many times they framed that up?
Yes, and it's Metia.
Met is the name of this red star.
Yes,
Metia. That sounds an awful lot like meteor.
Yes, it sure does. You are asking for something. You are praying because I think it's brought up a little bit later. Oh, are you wishing upon a star? And, I wouldn't. That's what kids wish
too
upon
old
stars.
For that now.
Yeah, really. And then it's a red star, and it's called Metia.
Metia,
right? Mm-hmm. And the woman, and when you pray to something, you bring it closer to you, right? Anyway.
So
you're summoning the power of the star.
Being longtime fans of Final Fantasy, we can kind of see where this is going.
Yeah, something's gonna happen.
But there's definitely something going on with that. The fact that it's a very clearly a bright red star right near the moon. Exactly. There is a reason why that's literally the first thing you see.
That means it's closer.
Yeah, and there is a reason why they showed it and featured it so many times in so many different scenes. So I wanted to point that out first. But what did you feel about being thrown right into this fight between Phoenix and Ifrit right off the bat?
I didn't know. I just didn't know. I didn't know. I will tell you, I wasn't the biggest fan of the fight in general, generally speaking.
Like the mechanics of it.
Yeah,
right?
the mechanics and just the way it's shot and the way it looks. It's cool, though. I liked it a lot more when it was given proper context 2 hours later. Right. Yeah. But being thrown in right here, I like it in the sense that it's the beginning of the Two Towers, right? You've got Gandalf and the Balrog falling, and then Frodo wakes up, but it was all a dream. I like where it's going. I just didn't love it in and of itself.
Okay. It's tough to kind of talk about the effectiveness of starting right off with this fight between Ifrit and Phoenix because it changes it so much when you've seen the marketing material and the trailers beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
And you already know Joshua is the Phoenix. You already know that something happens with Clive and Clive, because there's trailers where Clive says, Ifrit, come to me, and things like this, right? Yep. So you know that he's involved with... So we kind of already know what's going on.
Yeah.
But if I was completely blind, if I had not seen one thing and I knew nothing at all about this game's story, and I had not watched a single trailer, I think I would have really liked being thrown into it like that.
Yeah.
It would have been like, whoa, this is crazy. Yeah. I have no idea what's going on. But this is really like a high level of spectacle, and this is crazy. Why are they fighting? I would have had a lot more questions. But since I already know the answers to them, it didn't serve as quite the hook I think it could have been otherwise. But I don't know how to get around that problem. It's not even really a problem necessarily. It's just, it didn't like hit me as like the most effective way to start just because I already knew the context behind this, and it was clearly meant to build some kind of mystery. But
yes, clearly.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just unfortunate. Movie trailers and game trailers have a bad habit of doing that because they're trying to show you the coolest stuff the game has to offer. In doing so, they kind of show you all the cool stuff that the game has to offer, unfortunately. And it's a double-edged sword, right? You got to get people to buy the game, but you also don't want people to know everything that happens.
Yes.
And you don't want to oversell it. But in connecting this with the beginning of the Two Towers, in that sense, just in terms of like the way a movie might be structured, I did like it. I did. And then instead of a dream, it's just a memory, right?
Yeah.
But it's at night, and he's in front of a fire. And you still it's still very similar. You can tell that they kind of tried to base it off of.
Oh, yeah. Like, that was the thing I was thinking the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the shot where it's the wide angle in
and you see them
the gulch, and they're just falling down, this blaze of fire is just falling down. It's like, that's straight out of the Two Towers.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, like, it works, I think, to similar effect in terms of starting out with something visually striking.
Yeah.
And you go, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I like how they used the campfire in Clive's eye as the transition point.
Very cool, yeah.
Back out into the year of the realm 873, which is when we kind of jump forward to that point, right?
Yeah. And the fact that you're seeing fire reflected in his eye, or that you're seeing into his soul, and in his soul is fire.
Yes.
There's so many metaphors here. Like, it's really cool. Because I mentioned Prometheus before, I mentioned the light, I mentioned the story. There's also Phoenix, there's also Ifrit, there's also just him and his relation to fire. Yeah. Like, it's really cool. There's a lot going on here, and I always appreciate that.
Right.
Like, the artistry that it takes to combine all these things into one image and have it all kind of cohere.
Yeah.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
But you don't really know that right off the bat.
No.
I kind of went back and watched it again and came out with a lot more takeaways than I did just after a first playthrough of the demo.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So we get there's kind of a lot of information, and this is true. This is one of the hardest things about writing a fantasy story. You are introducing a whole different world with different terminology, places, names, governmental powers and structures, magic systems. There's a lot of things you have to introduce to your reader, player, viewer, whatever. Mm-hmm. And there's a really like a pacing to that is key to hit, or else people will get very, very confused. Wait, who is this person again? Wait, what is that?
You're
kingdom?
Already confused.
What was this guy's father's deal? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff.
Well, and as we were talking earlier, I actually confused Anabella with Benedicta.
Yes.
They seemed so similar to me in so many different ways.
Yes. This is one of the greatest challenges of writing this level of like high fantasy.
Yeah, and where you're skipping to different scenes, telling things from all sorts of different perspectives. Things are like third person, and then, like third person omniscient, I guess, would be the writing style. But then you're also moving in time. Right,
yes.
There's time skips that are happening. Very, very difficult to kind of keep it all together. By the end of the demo, I think the game does a pretty good job, but it can be pretty confusing at the beginning for sure.
So it's a hard thing to nail, and I think for the most part they do a pretty solid job. My sort of like personal rule of thumb with this is that what you need to really focus on is your main character first.
Yeah, for sure.
The people need to know who the main character is, and they need to be attached to that main character. They need to understand that character's reason for being motivated to get involved, the inciting incident, all of that. So there may be this beautiful world in which you've structured and created all kinds of cool stuff, but it's probably a good idea to hold off on going too hard on all of that until your character, your viewer, reader, player is very much so introduced to, understands your driving sort of main character. And I think that they did a pretty good job with this. There's only really one scene. It's actually the scene where you have what is it? That's not Dalmasca. That's Dalmekian.
That's FFO. Yeah.
The Dalmekian Republic meeting with the Kingdom of Waled, I think it was. And you have Benedicta, and you have what's his name? The freaking
the big dude, big guy.
Kupka.
That's it. Kupka.
The guy who's the dominant for Titan.
Yeah.
That whole scene and the kind of the politics going on there was the one scene in this whole sort of stretch of 2 hours, 3 hours where I was like, that might not have been the most necessary scene to have right now.
Right.
Like, what we really need to understand is Clive.
Yeah.
We really need to focus on Clive before, because we're not going to see those characters again for a very long time in the scheme of things.
Yeah, it's true.
So it felt a little bogged down just there, but it's not like the longest scene in the world. It does pass pretty quickly. It doesn't necessarily overstay its welcome. It just walks a line in which you can start losing some people. Obviously, it didn't do that, and that's good. I mean, people generally were very, very... they received this very, very well.
Yeah.
So it didn't confuse too many people, I don't think. But that's a fine line to walk, I feel like, as a fantasy writer. Because, there's just, I mean, we get all these things. The Nysa Defile.
Yes,
the Dalmekian Republic, the Iron Blood, or the Ironborn,
the Iron,
the Zernitra Stronghold,
the Land of Storm.
You got Benedicta and Walled and Kupka, and you got like all these different names and places and things, and it can be very overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
But I think they walk that tightrope pretty well, like all things considered.
Yeah.
So basically, what's happening in this first scene is you've got a group of 4, seems to be like sort of specially, I don't know, agents, or I don't know if that would be the right term necessarily.
Like
soldiers,
infiltrators, yeah.
That their job is to go and take out the dominant from the Iron Blood side of this battle.
Yeah.
They have a dominant. Now, I guess we should explain that. So, because that can be confusing too. That's part of it.
That was.
What is an icon? What is a dominant? What is the difference between a regular person and a dominant, right?
Yeah.
So, the icons are, for Final Fantasy fans, people who are familiar with the series, these are the summoned monsters: Ifrit, Titan, Rama, Garuda, freaking Bahamut.
Yeah.
All of these monsters, right? Their name in this game, they call those icons. Icon spelled E-I, or K-O-N. So not icon like iconography.
It's more icon like in Final Fantasy IX, the girl Eiko.
Yes.
Eiko Carol.
Right.
E-I-K-O.
Right.
Yeah.
These summoned beasts can sort of be channeled through a person who is called the dominant. So I would assume the dominant is controlling, the term dominate, right? Controlling the icon. We see this with Joshua, where we're kind of in his mind, we're hearing his voice, his thoughts as he's fighting through the Phoenix. So while he's maybe struggling to control it, he's definitely in control to a large degree of this beast.
Yeah.
So now there's a kind of a wrench that gets thrown into this with Ifrit and Clive, which we'll talk about when we get to that scene. But that's what the terminology is for icon and dominant. So there's these 2 sides fighting each other, the Iron Blood and the Dalmatian Republic.
And the Iron Blood come from the north, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I have a whole, what do you call it, the active time lore thing that they have, where you can read all about different things. So I have one
some of that,
for the Iron Blood that I'll read, and we'll get all the details on them in a little bit. But so these 2 sides are fighting, and the Iron Blood side has a dominant for the icon Shiva, which is an ice.
Yeah.
An ice summon, an ice summoned beast, which is a classic Final Fantasy summon, right? The Dalmatian side have another dominant. This guy, his freaking name is so weird, I always forget it. Kupka or something like that.
Kupka, yeah.
Who is the dominant of Titan, which is like the Earth Elemental summon. And there seems like there's a little bit of concealing going on both sides, because you brought this up. Why don't they just like start the attack with their icon and just have their icons fight each other? Why are they even bothering?
There's so many people dying. Like that was the biggest thing that stood out to me that FF16 is not going to shy away from is the blood and death and all of that. So as Clive gets closer to the battle with his kind of squadron, you see this huge group of people like running and fighting each other, and they're just slashing and killing and fighting. And it's not until later that you realize, wait a second, there's these huge titans that are going to fight the battle. What are these guys are either getting in the way, or they're all going to die when the nuclear bomb hits, or they're like, why are you sacrificing so many people when you could save a ton of lives by just like bringing out your titans, having them fight for you?
Right.
But there seems to be like a feint or there seems to be a strategy to this that nobody wants to bring out their dominant, their icon first. That you always want the other side to do it first, so that way they don't know where you are and you can make a surprise attack, or you can plan accordingly with your icon, assuming you have multiple if you have multiple dominants. I don't really know everything how this all works, but typically it seems like once one shows up, the other one then shows up, and it's almost like Pokemon, right? Like you want to see what the other opponent does first, and then if you go second, you can counteract it a lot easier. So it's like they're playing cards, and while all the soldiers are dying, they're holding on to their dominant because they don't want to reveal their hand yet. And then eventually the dominant himself walks out against the king's wishes. Right. And he's just like, I'm going to go do this. And it's like, no, don't go. And it's not that he's going to die. Well, maybe he might. He's pretty powerful. It's just that the king wanted to wait longer. He wanted to help. He wanted reinforcements. He wanted other things to happen first. Then he was going to bring out the dominant, right? So it's very interesting. I like the strategy here. I like it. It's not what I was expecting. I was expecting the dominants would already be out there on the field of battle, and that the soldiers would be fighting around them, and they would incorporate it all like into the battle. It does not seem to be that way at all.
So what's interesting here is that, well, we haven't mentioned the tattoos on the face.
No, not yet.
But there's 3 factions involved in this scene. You have, of course, we just mentioned Dhalmekia and the Ironblood that are fighting. But these guys that Clive is with the tattoos on the face, if you pay attention to the armor towards the end of the demo from the Empire that comes and sort of like takes out all the Rosarian, soldiers in their castle, they're wearing that same armor. Like the armor that these guys are wearing is the same armor. So these are Imperial soldiers of San Brek. So there's 4 Imperial soldiers that are there, it seems secretly, and their only job is to kill the dominant from the Ironbloods, Shiva's dominant. And the sergeant makes it really clear, like, we're only here to do that. Do not kill anyone else. Do not engage anyone else. Do not do anything other than kill Shiva's dominant. And one of the guys in the squad is even like, oh, that's not any fun. Like, what? How do we even know she's there? So that's kind of leading into your point. They're not even sure where the dominant is, or if they're going to use it in this battle.
That's
or
the strategy, right? That's part of the game. So there's some doubt about the deception.
And, of course, he then leans in and says, it's not our place, or the place of our kind to question orders. We just follow them. So, and then it shows a shot of Clive sort of touching the mark on his face.
And when the guy leans forward to say, we follow orders, his tattoo is very clear. And then we see Clive touching his face as well, and it's pretty obvious. Like, that's the mark of a slave.
So they are slave soldiers. I think it's made pretty obvious through that line. So these are slave soldiers from the Empire of San Brek. And they seem to be here to alter events or have some sort of hand in how this battle goes, but not in any obvious way where it would implicate that the Empire is reaching its hand and sort of trying to influence this, which is interesting. It's like, okay, what's Sam Breck's deal then? It's called an empire.
Right. What does that mean?
Exactly which factions, which kingdoms, which belong to that empire. It would have seemed to me that Rosaria would be, because it's a duchy. So, a duke and a duchess, they're not kings and queens.
Not the king.
They're servants of, or they're stewards of one part.
A region,
Right. And so, and the fact that even Joshua later on says, why would the Empire do this? They're our allies. Would lead me to believe that Rosaria is at least one part of the Empire of San Brek, but I don't know that for sure. I'm just kind of trying to piece together what we know based on what's been said in the game so far. So San Brek is interesting. I don't know what's going on with them, but that's what they're here to do. So they're making their way down, and then we get this scene where we learn all of this stuff up at the what did they call it? The stronghold, Zernitra stronghold. Clive sort of looks up there, and we cut into that negotiation room, and so you have the King of Waled on one side. This is Benedicta's side, the woman. And then you have the Dhalmekian Republic side, where Kupka is. And it seems that Dhalmekia has summoned them there as some sort of allies or bannermen or something, saying, come fight. You swore to lend us your aid in wartime, and they seem to be refusing to do that, which is pissing off at least one of the guys, I don't know his name, on the side of the Dalmatians.
Yeah.
And it's
that
like,
leader.
What the heck? Like, you're supposed to help us, and they're just refusing to do so.
Yep.
So, as this is going on, Benedicta expresses surprise at being summoned at all. It's like, you Dalmecs are renowned warriors who fought off the Crusaders, another term we don't really totally understand yet, right? You have your own dominant who hasn't even taken the field yet. Like, what are you so worried about?
Yeah.
And I think that that guy then stands up and says, well, we know now, like, our information tells us that they've got their own dominant. Right. And so, like, it would be totally unwise to, underestimate them and all this stuff. And that's when Kupka comes up and just, like, puts his hand. This dude's huge.
He's massive. Yeah, go figure that the icon he summons is, like, the big Titan.
Yeah. This dude is, like, absolutely just a massive human being.
Yeah.
Just towers over everybody. And there's a lot of power when he decides to speak on something. Yeah. It's like everybody else shuts up when he decides to say something. He kind of pushes the king down a little bit.
Yeah. That was great.
Should this citadel fall, the capital will lie exposed. And I doubt the Crusaders, again, I'm not sure who the Crusaders are, will wait for the good king's pawns, or I doubt the Crusaders will wait for the good king's pawns to line up before taking the board, which leaves just me. So what he's essentially saying there is, if we don't win this battle, then the capital is exposed to the Iron Blood army.
Right.
And the Crusaders, whoever they are not going to wait for the king to get his pawns on the board to counteract that.
Right.
So we have to win today.
Yeah.
The Crusaders will get involved if we lose. So I'm the only one left, which leaves just me. And the Iron Blood will rue the day that they set foot on Storm. The game is over. So he's going out there to end this fight.
Yeah.
And then, pretty interesting development, this character Benedicta from the other side of the table
she like runs after him, yeah.
Yeah, follows him out. And we get a revelation here that there's some kind of maybe under the table or secret relationship going on between them, particularly since they're representing two different
They didn't say anything when they were in the room with other people.
Yeah.
And as soon as they're alone, they're like, oh, hey, let's get together.
So this is hinting at, I think, at least on the part of two dominants who seem to be subservient to whatever nation, country, kingdom that they might be scheming something together.
Yeah.
Especially when they have all the power, when they are the dominants, right? Like, why would they be subservient when you can just become Titan and smash everybody?
Exactly.
So they're kind of weaving something there as far as a question or a mystery.
Yep.
Again, I'm not sure we needed that mystery quite yet because we're still not introduced to our main character yet, and we're not going to see anything develop between the Iron Blood and Woled and Benedicta and Kupka until way after we get through all the stuff with Clive. Right. So again, this was the one scene, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's the one scene where, upon playing this, I was like, I'm not sure, like, we quite needed that right now, when I still don't know all these names and factions and terms and stuff like that. You're kind of throwing a little too much at me right away, and I still don't know who my main character is yet. So, it's my one slight, tepid criticism of the intro of this story. But
so she then tells him, like, "Oh, you have to be careful. Make sure you come back tonight."
Right.
And he says, "Does the lion need to? What is it? Does the lion take care when he chases after the hare?
Yeah.
Or do you think me more of the latter?"
Yeah.
Right. Which is, I thought that line was very good.
Yeah.
That line gave me some Vagrant Story vibes a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And she's saying, no, of course, you're going to win. And he says, that's right. And all I really need is somebody to keep me warm when I'm done.
Well, he says, I'm not afraid of a little frost because he's going out to fight Shiva. But I will need someone to warm me when I return, which is, kind of cool. So
little innuendo. I thought it was really good though. Really well done.
Yeah.
There's another thing that I kind of skipped over a little bit.
Okay.
After there's the fire in his eyes at night, right, with the campfire. But then the next day when they're like, all right, let's go, he's kind of standing staring at the sun for a while, for like a long time. I don't know, 4 seconds. It's a long shot,
he kind of just walks towards
steps
a
up,
precipice and looks out over. Yeah,
but he's looking up and he's looking at the sun basically. Now the sun is the phoenix. Well, the phoenix the sun is a symbol for phoenix. We'll put it that way.
Sure.
And so it's interesting that he goes out and he's looking up at the sun.
I didn't even think of that. That's an interesting.
Because he was just looking at the fire, remembering something, and then we see him again, and he's staring at the sun. So there's good stuff. I'm going to have a little bit more to say about that here in a little bit. But the sun is the light of the world, and his name is also Wyvern.
Yeah, it's like his soldier name, code name. I don't know.
Yes,
it's whatever.
It also hints that he might have some secret powers we don't know about.
Sure, yeah.
Like what? You're calling him a dragon or a wyvern?
Well, and the sergeant also emphasizes multiple times, you are key to the mission's success.
Yes.
You need to focus, and you are not allowed to die.
You're not allowed to die. Yeah.
Like, you can't die. Like, don't even think about going there. Like, you are not allowed to die in this fight.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So whatever Clive is meant to do here in terms of taking out Shiva's dominant, like, they're relying on him to get it done.
Yep.
So that is an interesting code name for that reason.
So then the Battle of Soldiers, as they're going around fighting and the four are kind of getting closer, all of a sudden the Titan shows up, right?
Yes.
And it's really cool when he shows up. He's gripping the cliffside.
It's really awesome.
At first I'm like, oh no, he's here to fight us. But then it's like, he's so big, he's not at all concerned with Clive and his
No, he's not even thinking.
He's not even looking in that direction. He is looking out. And then Ifrit shows up.
Shiva.
Sorry. Yeah. Shiva shows up then after Titan has already kind of made himself known. He is massive. It's really cool. They sell the scale really
They really do. You definitely feel the impact. And I'm not one, like we were saying, I think in the other video we made on this, to sort of like get swept up in spectacle and special effects.
Yeah.
You know, we were visual effects artists for a long time.
Yep.
You know, we kind of know how things are done, and when you know how they're done, it's not quite as impressive anymore. But this worked.
It was cool.
The spectacle of this fight really worked. I really felt it. The music was good. The shots were really cool.
Really good.
Like the expression, I really liked the facial expressions on Shiva as they were fighting. You kind of see almost this, like, what's going on internally, what they're thinking. Okay, what's my next move? Like, because she shoots out all those huge, like, shards, and he just, like, punches and shatters them. And then it has, like, the crystal sort of floating in this sort of slow-motion shot.
Around his eyes.
And she's working through what the next move is. You don't have to say anything. And it's cool. It's just really cool, I guess is the best way I could put it.
It's very
This
well
whole
done.
scene is really cool as far as the spectacle goes. And then fissures are opening up and people are falling in.
Yeah, because
the
every
ground
now
is
and then
crumbling around you.
They give you those shots that remind you, oh, there's people underneath.
Yeah.
He's stepping on people, basically, in order to do, and it's his own people, I think.
Yes.
And that's creepy and weird, and all these shots, like the Battle of Soldiers has just become a battle of gods, and the gods don't care about the soldiers.
Yes.
Right? And they're stepping on them, they're killing them, and they're it's the gods fighting each other. It's not the soldiers. The soldiers don't actually matter.
Yeah, it's like the soldiers existed in the fight to conceal
just as pawns.
When are the Titans going to come out, and when and why, and how,
where.
and how will they be used?
Yeah.
Once that happens, the soldiers no longer matter. Now it's the battle of the Titans.
Yep.
Right? So it's like they're totally expendable at this point, and that battle need not continue anymore. It's like
it's almost irrelevant.
It's pointless.
It's like, get out of there. Get out of there. The Titans are here. Everyone run back.
Yeah,
Go back
exactly.
as fast as you can.
But then Biast is one of the 4 guys that are part of this Sanbrechian infiltration group here. He gets crushed by one of those boulders. He just gets freaking smashed.
Just destroyed. And then something almost kills Clive.
Yes.
But then it was at Tiamat. The other guy was like, oh, I told you, you're not allowed to die yet.
Yep.
We're losing consciousness. And as we lose consciousness, he says, brother.
Yes, he refers to Bias, the guy who died, as his brother. I wrote that down too. That's, brother in arms kind of thing. But a stronger
Clearly,
bond
he means
than,
something else, though.
Yeah, I think that
he's remembering
something to that, and the fact that he's flashbacking right at this part
right then
it leads into what you're saying.
Yeah.
So this is where we flash back now, 13 years previous.
Yeah.
Clive was 15 at the time that we're now jumping into, which the 13-year difference will put him at 28 in the previous scene, which you mentioned. So 13 years earlier, he's in the middle of sparring with the Lord Commander of the Rosarian army, Murdoch, who I guess serves as some kind of mentor for him in terms of as a soldier.
Yeah,
he teaches him
to fight,
how to fight,
but also kind of is a guard, a protector.
Yes,
yeah.
And so this serves as a tutorial for the combat. Teaches you about how to attack, how to use your fire attacks, and even like the Phoenix ability that he has.
Yeah.
Right. So, you've got
it's very cool.
A couple other characters they introduce here. Joshua, who is Clive's younger brother, and Jill. She's obviously good friends with Joshua and Clive.
Yeah.
Childhood friends. And clearly she feels a little something more than that for Clive.
Yes, it
and
seems
Clive
so.
seems
but they're
to
young.
be a little bit conflicted about that. We'll get to that in the scene between him and Jill later. But
his job, he is a shield of the flame.
Yes.
When a person is called a shield, it means they are putting themselves at risk, right? It means that they are somebody who will be expected to die for the person, for the sake of whoever they're protecting. I feel like that might be his conflict, right? Like his purpose is to go die. He's not going to go get into some romantic relationship, right? Because it's not going to work out well.
So they're all watching in the Bailey as Clive fights, and he actually does knock Commander Murdoch down. It's like the first time he actually won a point, or
and Murdoch doesn't give him trouble over it. He's just like, good job, that was good, you did
it. You are a true shield. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, even myself.
And then the line "blessed by the Phoenix" shows up as well, where he says during the fight, like, remember, you're blessed by the Phoenix, you can use these special fire moves, right?
That's right. And
so what is the difference between a dominant and being blessed by?
Yeah, this is a good question, because Clive is the firstborn son of the Duke. And whoever the Duke is meant to be the inheritor of this power, being the dominant of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that not only did Clive not get accepted by the Phoenix, so he was rejected by it, but he still was blessed somehow.
Yeah,
he still has some power, some inner flame within him with the Phoenix.
Works.
But he wasn't accepted as the dominant of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
And neither was Elwin, his father.
Yes, that's true.
I really liked the reveal of that a little bit later
good.
On between Elwin and Annabella in their scene. But this is something that's still probably to be revealed. They're probably going to work up and build more explanation behind this. But,
it sounds like Velhard is saying that Joshua lets him borrow the Phoenix powers. So it's Joshua who blesses Clive with the powers of the Phoenix.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Did you read that, Velhart, in one of the active time lore things, or is that something that's been revealed in the game, or is that just information given outside of the game by a developer interview or something like that? But that's an interesting point, because the developer said it. Why I don't know it, because I didn't read all the developer interviews. But there's a part at the end of the fight. Clive is obviously fatigued, exhausted, injured somehow, and Joshua comes up to him and uses some kind of power
to heal him. Right, which is fire power.
Yeah.
The fire has the power to heal.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Which is, kind of the duality of the Phoenix itself, the life and the death.
Oh,
so
sure, there you go.
The power,
this
fire has the power to heal and to destroy.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting point, though, if, that it's like the power is channeled through Joshua, but he can sort of lend it or borrow, allow the soldiers to borrow.
To certain
and maybe not the soldiers, but at least Clive. He seems to be the one soldier who can do this.
Yeah, that's
I don't know about Elwin. Elwin never gets a chance to fight before he's brought to an unfortunate end. But anyway, Clive has some level of kind of fire abilities, which come from the blessing of the Phoenix, but he is not the dominant of Phoenix.
Also, the name Joshua, it means God is salvation. This is good. Joshua was also Jesus' name. So the name Jesus in Hebrew was what we would say Joshua, but Yeshua or Yehoshua. Jesus and Phoenix obviously have some big parallels, right? The dying and being reborn. And then Joshua also wears a crucifix. He has 2 like crosses kind of on either side
of his red clothing.
His red clothes. So not all, I don't know. Joshua is whatever happens to him, we will likely see him again.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to say about that. They're giving us a lot of hints.
A lot of hints to that. Yeah. I agree with that. Also, speaking about Vagrant Story references or whatever, Joshua was the name of the young boy in Vagrant Story who got kidnapped and brought to Laemond, right?
Yeah.
Of the son of the Duke. So
yeah,
maybe,
that's crazy.
Maybe that's
and this is the same dev team.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's 25 years. There's probably 10% of the people are still there from Vagrant
It's
Story.
not all the
but
same.
Still.
But yeah, the heritage of this particular business unit has its heritage in the development of that game.
Very cool.
Now, I also thought it was interesting that despite the fact that Clive is the firstborn and is not the heir, so he was rejected as the heir because he did not become the dominant, Joshua was accepted, and he is the heir as the secondborn. And generally, that would create a lot of jealousy and tension.
Yeah,
but
like
they seem to have
Cain and Abel situation. Right?
Yeah, but they seem to have a really good relationship. Clive is very understanding. He's happy to serve as a shield, and he loves his brother. And so that was kind of cool. And then they used the mother character, Anabella, as the one who's creating the animosity in the family, which I kind of liked that dynamic. You don't see it necessarily all that often. Well, maybe you do. I mean, Game of Thrones again with Cersei Lannister. But in any case, it's like it was almost to the point where I was confused. Like I almost couldn't believe that Clive was her biological son. I was like,
I know that was difficult.
Clive actually like Elwin's first former wife's child or something? He doesn't look like her. He looks like him.
True, because she has the blonde hair that that Joshua has.
Joshua has lighter hair,
whereas Clive is more like his father with darker hair.
I was like, there's no way this woman is the biological mother of Clive.
Yeah.
I still almost am holding on to that. But there's a part of me that's like, they're just he refers to her as mother, not Your Grace.
Yep.
Right? And he calls his own father Your Grace, not father. He like corrects himself there. But he calls her, like, he says something like, good day to you, mother, or something
bows,
like that. And even Elwin refers to her as his mother when speaking to Clive. So there's a part of me that's like, no, she's the biological mother. She just was always more focused on status, always more focused on position. Yes. That's what she really cares about. And so she would even disregard entirely or hate her own son for not living up to that legacy. She's just that evil of a person to have no love for the firstborn son who was this failure or whatever. Yeah. So, but there's still a part of me that's like, if they reveal later that she's not the biological mother, that will not surprise me one bit.
Surprised at all. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
She seems, and this is even a stretch at this point based on what we know about the end, seems to only care about Joshua. She says as she's walking up there, I think the handmaidens or the servants around her are like, "Oh, my lady, like something you shouldn't be here.
This is where the filthy peasants are."
Yeah, right. Yeah. And she's like, "I would brave hell itself to see my darling boy, my son Joshua, or whatever." Right?
Yeah, that's foreshadowing, by the way.
Yes.
So she would brave hell itself to see her darling little boy. I don't feel the weight of those words later on when certain things happen. But that sentence right there, she is going to have to do something like braving hell itself if she wants to see her darling little boy.
Right.
So very good.
Well, and that. Well, we'll just get into that part of it later. Another reason that could explain why she's not so torn up about it is knowing what we're guessing at in terms of the Phoenix rising again.
That's what Phoenixes do. It's what they do.
Yes.
Now, there could be a way where you say, well, the Phoenix will die and come back, but it comes back in a different person's body.
Yes.
Like the Phoenix dies and comes back, but the person doesn't. But I think it's Josh himself, the dominant Josh, seems to have that power over life and death. And the name Josh and Jesus and all the whole stuff. Like, I think Josh is coming back.
Yes, I do too. Okay.
Oh, the name Jill means youth or child of the gods.
Yeah, that's the girl's name,
Yeah,
Jill.
that's Jill. Mm-hmm. Clive means a cliff or a slope or a precipice.
He does look out over a precipice at the beginning of the game.
Clive seems to symbolize that that is his place.
Precipice.
He is on the precipice of falling. We'll put it that way. Yeah, and then the dog. I love the dog.
Torgal.
So Torgal. Tor is Thor, actually. So Torgal means the protection of Thor, the god of thunder.
Yeah.
Obviously, that dog's going to be involved in fighting 13 years hence. It is just a puppy now, but it will be full grown and will probably help us out in battle.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
More dogs, please.
So, the Duke comes back. He had been gone for a while, rides in on a chocobo. Yep. And he tells Clive that war is coming. He kind of, says it only for his ears. Come meet me in the throne room. We need to talk about this.
By the way, the impression from Anabella, from the Queen, just not a good person, right?
Yes, Duchess, yeah.
The Duchess. And then the impression of the Duke here, great person, seems just awesome. And I don't want to bemoan flat characters. I think they're fine. Not every character needs to be this rounded, different, go against stereotypes. I don't think that needs to be the case at all.
Yeah.
But I don't want to know so immediately.
Yeah.
This is bad, this guy bad, this girl good, or this girl bad, this guy good. I don't want to know that right away. I would like some time first,
more,
instead of this immediate, so quickly, in so few words, oh, you're bad. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah. Okay, put you in bad category. And hopefully the game can surprise me. That would be nice. Yeah. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. But something rubbed me a little bit wrong about how obviously a good guy the Duke seemed, right? And how obviously a bad person the Queen seemed.
Yeah.
Life tends not to be so absolute.
Black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I feel you on that. So there's a scene before Clive gets to the throne room where, and I loved this actually. This is one of the things that stuck out the most to me in all of this sort of 13 years ago scene.
Yeah.
Was as he's making his way there, there's a servant coming down who sort of drops an apple on the ground, and this guy has the same tattoo.
Yeah, the slave.
I thought that was really effective because we've already seen this tattoo on Clive later.
And it's already been hinted this is for slaves.
Yes.
And now we see it
And
again.
so now we see one, and you have a totally different feeling now about this guy.
Right.
Right? And what does, what is this going to mean for Clive coming up in the story?
Right.
It's a really nice use of a symbol to sort of foreshadow where this is going, but also just a mystery about who are these slaves and what does that tattoo even represent, and what is their role in the society, obviously other than being some kind of servant or slave or whatever. Why the brand? Why the tattoo? What's special about them?
Yeah.
And this is what's coming for the character, so I'm more intrigued by it now. That was a big question that came to my mind. It's okay, I want to know more about that.
A thing that I'm always interested in seeing is just the the general concept of reciprocity, right?
Yeah.
You get what you give, you receive,
Yeah.
And the way he treats slaves, knowing now that he is going to become a slave himself, seeing the way he treats slaves is it's nice for your protagonist. You want to see your protagonist acting this way, and it does give some kind of hints as to what's coming in the future. His life is going to be something. He's going to live the life of a slave for a while.
Yeah.
But at the very least, when you say what goes around comes around, a lot of times people will come to this realization: oh, I shouldn't have been so mean. But because he was good to the slaves, the slaves may be good to him back.
Yes.
At some point in the future.
Yeah.
So there's another foreshadowing element here.
Yeah.
That it's a good thing that he was, a bit kinder to the slaves. He had no foresight that he would become one, but we know he will.
Yes.
And so this is a story element.
I think another way to look at that concept too is that even being kind and generous to the slaves is not an excuse for owning slaves.
Well, I don't know if it was his slave or his father's
Well, I mean,
slave.
this is a system he's born into.
Yeah.
But what I mean is the what do you call it? The tolerating or sort of abiding this system, not being more outspoken about it, not doing more work. Not that he had that much power anyways to change it. It's not going far enough. Like you're going to eventually get the other side of that coin as this noble who lived the privileged life.
So in a sense, he could have had a say in possibly abolishing that system, but because he didn't, he now has to live in it.
Sure. Now, that's of course not like perfectly fair, because not only, I mean, he's a noble, but he's a sort of like scorned son of a duke who was a failure and lost his inheritance.
Right.
So it's not like he has power at all. He's basically just one of the soldiers.
Yeah.
But he just happens to be the duke's son, and so he's going to be Joshua's protector. Right. But I would say maybe all of his power at this point is essentially gone. He has no say in anything.
But he would have to convince his dad to do something on his behalf.
And he has the ability to do that because his dad still loves him. So he has some power, and yet he's not using it to help the slaves. He's just nice to them.
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was just one thought that I had. But it's not enough. It's not enough to just be nice. You have to, work to actually help these people.
Yeah.
Okay. So make your way to the throne room. Do the territories fare any better, he asks. Oh, I guess, first of all, he bows and he continues to call his father your grace.
Yeah.
And this is when he finally says, like...
your mom's not here.
Says, she's not here. Like, you don't have to lick my boots anymore. Now, this in and of itself, this whole line suggests something really interesting. He's the Duke.
Yeah.
Yet, whatever she has dictated about how Clive should act in the presence of the Duke
supersedes
is what
him.
Elwin and Clive actually abide by. So she has more influence in at least some regard as to the life Clive lives than his own father has.
This is a well-kept secret from the world, but I'm going to let everyone in on a well-kept secret. When the queen is the wife of a king, she has more power to do what she wants. When the queen is not the wife of the king, meaning the queen is now the head of the state, she actually has less power. Because the head of the state needs to manage the desires and wants of all the other nobles around him.
Yes.
And needs to do it properly and can't actually do whatever he wants to do.
If he wants to stay king much longer.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, exactly. If he wants to stay king, then he can't do what he wants. He has to do what the nobles want him to do, right?
Yes.
At least the majority of them, and there's factions and all of that stuff. One of them being the queen. She will whisper in his ear, she'll tell him what to do, and he will then have to decide whether or not to take that input, just like a lot of the other nobles around him. But he won't actually have much input for his own, like, what he wants to do.
Yeah.
The queen has more sway over him, over his life, than he has over his own life.
Yeah.
But then when the queen becomes the head of the state, she basically loses that power. The power to be kind of in the back seat, to kind of manipulate things from behind the spokesperson, from behind the figurehead, and to not be seen as responsible in the end. But when the queen becomes the head, now it's the queen's job to manage all of the nobles and all of the keys and what everybody else wants and doesn't want, and just to try to quell rebellions and pick factions and all of that stuff. Yeah. Doesn't actually get to do what she wants to do. So there's a way of looking at this, specifically this event, which is a very good representation of it, where the queen has that sway over the Duke, and the Duke is merely trying to manage the different people who have sway over him in different ways.
Yeah.
And then the queen is, or the Duchess is one of those nobles that's trying to get him to do certain things. And he'll make concessions and he'll do certain things, conceding to the people around him, the Duchess being one of them. Okay, so that is a sort of secret about part of the way that the world works. That is not often talked about. But you typically don't want to be the figurehead in charge of everything. It would be much better to be the secret power behind the figurehead for when things go wrong.
Yeah, the one pulling the strings.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring up a good point, particularly with arranged marriages, which were almost always done for the sake of alliances.
Yeah, yeah.
So Elwin, as he says later in the scene with her, his father, I think, was the last dominant before Joshua, and he did not inherit that power.
Yeah.
And so he considers himself really only warming the seat. Because
he's warming the seat.
He wouldn't
Joshua.
have been the Duke at all had his father not died early, died before his time.
But this brings up a question. So he didn't have the power of the Phoenix, but he could pass it down still.
I guess so. It's in the blood somehow, but the Phoenix chooses somehow who to select. And Clive was rejected, and Elwin was rejected. But
Elwin's a sick name, by the way.
Yeah. But Joshua was accepted. So obviously he is trying his acceptance or tolerating of his tolerance of Anabella is probably in service to whatever alliance that marriage formed. Yeah. And if he just doesn't listen to her, doesn't take her input, doesn't do what she wants, that would cause problems that this alliance created.
The alliance was there for a reason. It's not just like, oh, we're connected now. Okay, King, keep doing whatever you were going to do.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. It's like, no, the alliance is connected. Therefore, King, you have to do certain things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that could explain why, he allows her to treat him this way. Yeah. Allows her to treat Clive this way, even though he doesn't like it.
Right.
And why they both, in her presence, will abide by whatever rules or etiquette that Clive is supposed to have in the presence of the Duke and Duchess. So, anyway, Clive asks him, do the territories fare any better? And the response from Elwin, most lie under a pall of black. In these few moons, the blight has taken nigh on all the northern reaches. It is only a matter of time before it crosses the border. So there is some kind of blight.
A plague.
Blight that is coming from the north.
Yep.
And sort of expanding. And they've been keeping watch on this from the border, but it's getting to the point where it's now crossing. It's only a matter of time before this is going to infect our realm as well. Now, this creates a huge problem because, as he goes on to talk about, nearly every available bed in the capital is already occupied by those fleeing the Deadlands.
Right.
Even if we were to send them south to Port Isolde, more would only follow in their wake. Every day we delay brings us closer to disaster. We must move now. Okay, so move where? How are you going to solve this problem? Answer comes from Clive. Against the Iron Kingdom. And so there's a moment of heaviness. There's a pause. There's a beat there after that. As he's making the right implication. We're going to war, not for any other reason than self-preservation.
It's preemptive.
Almost. Yes, because this blight is coming.
Yeah.
And we need something to deal with that. And it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to this Iron Kingdom. And it is the crystal, this mother crystal, right?
Yeah.
Both kingdoms are sort of claiming the territory in which it belongs to. And now they've been trading blows. They've been doing maybe, smaller scale wars against each other. But now this is going to be a big one. This is going to be a bigger war, Clive says later, than even the one that came before, right?
Yep.
Over the possession of this mother crystal, which is necessary, it seems, to dealing with this problem of the blight. So Murdoch says in response to this, we've traded blows with them for too long, it's time to end it. Elwin says, at the very least, we must secure Drake's breath. I think that's the name of the mother crystal in question here, Drake's breath. Without the blessing of the mother crystal, we cannot defend our realm from the spread of the blight. In fact, somebody who knows what Drake's breath is, make sure that I'm not wrong about that.
I don't know what it is in the game, but Drake would be the name of a dragon. That would be
right.
Dragon's breath, right?
So is Drake's breath the crystal itself or some sort of artifact which you can channel the power of the crystal? I'm not sure exactly what Drake's breath is, but that's what they need to go get from the Iron Bloods. We cannot defend our realm against the spread of the blight. Clive says the Iron Blood will not relinquish it easily. This will be a bitter fight. Elwin says we ride for Phoenix Gate tomorrow. There we will listen to the words of our ancestors as tradition dictates. Anytime there's a tradition to follow, some sort of ancestral rite or something like that, something's going to go wrong there. The people are going to know
Yeah.
It's almost the problem with doing it. It's like, before we go into battle, we have to go here and pray to our gods.
But everyone knows
you're everyone knows that's your tradition, so they know exactly where you're going. And they're going to meet you there and, like, ruin it. So
like
you can see this coming.
Yeah, that's
Anyway, Clive says, am I to go with you as Joshua's shield? Elwin says, there's something else I need you to do first. Rodney, which is the first name of Murdoch, go explain it. So there's been reports of beastmen, goblins, and monsters and things like that being sighted approaching south along with the Blight towards the borders, right?
Yeah.
And Clive's like, oh, the rumors of goblins in Stillwind marshes, I've heard those rumors. Then you know what must be done. I will give you 2 good men. While we ride north tomorrow, you'll journey to Stillwind, search it, and clear it. Then you will join us in Phoenix Gate. So we have to go investigate this old abandoned village of Stillwind and see whether or not, it's been infested by beastmen and goblins and monsters. And if they're there, you got to take them out. And then come join us. And then Elwin sort of calls him up and says, almost just for his ears alone, it's time to prove your strength and shut your mother up for good.
It sounded like Murdoch heard that a little bit, because he kind of gives a smile as he's walking away.
Yeah. I'll do my duty, your grace, says Clive. And so that's kind of the end of that scene. He's supposed to go rest for the next day. Now there's a couple of things to read here just so that we can get familiar with some of the terminology. I don't think I need to read about Elwin Rossfield, but Rossfield is the surname of this house.
Rossfield.
That are the Dukes of Rosaria, right? Father of Clive and Joshua, loved by the people for his steadfast leadership, both at home and on the battlefield, which he put to good effort in quelling the rebellious northern territories.
Of course. This is so English, by the way. Yep. So English. Like King Arthur, it was always the north. It was always the monsters came from the north. The giants came from the north.
In Game of Thrones, the freaking Nightwalkers come from the north.
Of course.
The Northmen are always the freaking bad guys. Okay, so then the Grand Duchy of Rosaria, a nation occupying the western reaches of the continent of Storm, with Rosalith as its capital, which is the castle that they're at right now, the city that they're at. Rosaria was originally formed from a collection of smaller dominions, all of which now stand united under the banner of Archduke Elwin Rossfield. Not possessing a mother crystal of its own, the duchy has long been locked in bitter conflict with the Iron Kingdom over possession of Drake's Breath, which lies still further to the west in the midst of the boiling sea. I'm pretty sure that's the name of the mother crystal itself. So there's this mother crystal Drake's out Breath. In the ocean. And they don't have their own mother crystal in their territory. This territory where in the ocean, where this mother crystal is at, is contested between Rosaria and the Iron Kingdom. This passage about mother crystals, enormous glassy mountains, 5 of which tower over the lands of Valisthea. They are the source of all the crystals that the people of the twins rely on in their everyday lives. We've seen that a couple times now, where like that one guy brought up a water crystal and put it over the goblet, and water filled up the goblet. These crystals that the people use are, I would guess, mined or sourced from the giant mountain mother crystals. Now, I really like this concept because one of my favorite pieces of trivia for the Final Fantasy series, I will be bringing this up again on Tuesday, is that the mountains in the first Final Fantasy game, they're all white. They're not brown in color like normal mountains. Yeah. And this wasn't one of those limitations. You can only have a certain number of colors. This is an 8-bit console type of thing. Yeah. It was purposeful because as they put kind of their black lines through the mountains, what this would do on a CRT TV is it would sort of create this bleed effect of color, and you'd get these pinks and blues that would sort of come through the CRT from that white. And the whole point of that was to give this effect, which they could not create otherwise, of it being crystalline mountains. That had these, this refraction of light and these glinting different colors coming through them. And so here we've got literal mountains, which are the mother crystals. And this is the image that we have.
That's so cool.
Kind of back here. There's this giant crystal
behind the castle.
The big castle there. So I kind of liked that as sort of a callback to the original Final Fantasy, that they have these crystal mountains, and that the source of all the world's magic kind of comes from these things, and everybody relies on them basically to survive.
Yep, it was a gift from the gods, or a curse from the gods.
Yes, right, which was kind of what the intro text was hinting at a little bit there, which we touched on. So we got this other one, the Iron Kingdom, also known in the local tongue as Heron. The Iron Kingdom is an archipelago nation situated off the west coast of Storm, with its capital in Craig Loigst. The Mother Crystal Drake's breath rises from a volcanic island situated just within or without its borders, depending on who you ask, and has been the object of long-standing conflict between the Iron Blood and the neighboring Duchy of Rosaria. The Iron Kingdom's inhabitants shun any contact with outsiders, which has given rise to a unique, if largely inward-looking, culture. So it was interesting that also in the first scene when the Iron Blood are fighting against the Republic, one of the guys, again with Clyde, talks about them as if they're more beast than man.
Ooh, yeah.
Right. So they're a very, what'd you call it? Isolated, almost secretive sort of culture. They don't associate with any of the others of the mainland. And so there's some mystery surrounding them, but they definitely don't want anyone messing with their Mother Crystal. So that's what's about to happen. Rosaria is about to declare war and just go take this thing by force. Because if they don't, the Blight's going to overrun their duchy and kill everybody. So that's kind of the situation we find ourselves in here. So I don't have a lot to say about the next section. Well, I guess there's a couple scenes first. We have the scene with Elwin and Anabella.
Yes. I only have one thing to say about that one.
Okay, go for it.
This was good stuff. So basically she's trying to talk to him about how, why do you like Clive so much? It's not a big deal. And this is where he reveals that I don't have any, I'm not a dominant, that I'm merely a steward for the seat for Joshua, for when he gets old enough, then I will step down, because whoever controls the Phoenix is the real ruler of the kingdom. But then he says this to her because she doesn't want him to take Joshua with him to the Phoenix Gate.
Right, because she knows what's going to happen.
She's planning something. She knows what's going to happen. She doesn't try that hard to stop him, but she does ask politely, hey, don't do this. And he's like, no, I'm going to. And she's really mad at him. But what he says to her is very interesting.
Yeah.
Especially given what I said about Joshua being basically like a Jesus-type character. He says, you can't keep him in swaddling clothes all his life.
The swaddling clothes.
Right?
I did take note of that. It was that's the only other place I have heard that
swaddling
is in
clothes.
the Bible.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
That doesn't mean that it can't ever reference anything else. But it's kind of stacking up here. They're definitely setting us up for something. That this woman, Anabella, is keeping Joshua coddled in swaddling clothes. Something important we probably should have mentioned at this point, too, is that Joshua is not well. He's sick.
Yes.
He coughs a lot, like me. He's got all sorts of issues. And I don't know, they didn't say what is wrong with him, but he's sick, and it's not just a cold.
Yes.
He's got something deeper, more serious wrong with him.
Right.
Which is interesting, given that he has the power to heal.
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem capable of healing himself.
Yes.
Or willing to heal himself. I don't know what it is. But those are my notes from this conversation, basically. She kind of, tries to seduce him a little bit and get him to do what she wants. He's standing fast and saying, no, I'm not going to do what you want. And then it cuts with a shot on her, with a really bad guy face on. And then it fades,
Yeah. Clearly, this is not a marriage of love.
Nope.
It was one of duty, one of alliance between two different houses.
Yeah.
But I did like that line a lot because she's talking about Clive, how he's this failure.
Yeah.
And how he's just a man like any other. And the response to that was, as am I.
As am I. And she goes, no, you're the dude.
Yeah.
You're powerful. You're important. And he's like, so freaking what?
The only reason I am is because my dad died too early. Otherwise, he would still be here right now. And, and Joshua would be the heir, not me. Right. They would have skipped me and gone straight to Joshua.
Which she wants, because a queen would have a mother would have more sway over her son than her husband. I don't know if that's totally true. But in this case, it's definitely true.
Yes.
She does not seem to have much sway over the king, the duke.
Yeah.
But she would try her chances with Joshua, and she would probably have a much greater sway over Joshua than she does over the current king, which is why she kind of makes a little plan and decides to do some things.
Yes. So it was a good scene. And then the next scene is between Clive and Jill. So she comes to see him. And this is where you get a ton of really quite obviously framed shots of that moon with the red star there.
Yeah, this was
like
a good combo.
there's an arc kind of leading into the castle. So you're looking through that arc, and the moon is just perfectly framed right there at the top as they're sort of talking. This is done for a reason. This is this thing. They're like, look at that. That's important.
It is a full moon, and it is clearly important. The moon will feature throughout this game. In the other part of the demo, you see the crescent moon, very conveniently framed as well.
Yeah.
But it's a crescent this time. Yeah. So they're definitely they're saying stuff about when they show the moon in that way.
Yeah.
It's telling you something about the characters.
Yeah. There's some sort of symbol there that's important for the story, and that red star is going to be important.
Yes.
And this is where she calls it. She calls it out, Metia, right?
Yeah,
Metia, which sounds a lot like meteor,
sure does.
Right?
Sounds like someone from Brooklyn. It's the media.
So anyway, she comes out. Are you wishing on a star? He's like, I'm too old for that, don't you think?
Which is dumb, by the way. Don't listen to. He's wrong.
15-year-olds do feel this way.
They do. But it is no small thing to wish upon a star. It's not.
They're having a little bit of back and forth. He's like, yeah, I'm going to be, Joshua's shield. And, this cool, my dad gave me my first command. Like, this is great. This is cool. Yeah. And she's worried. She's really worried about this. Something doesn't feel right.
Then she prays for him.
Yeah, well, if you're not going to do it, I'll pray to Metia for you, right? And this is where he mentions that this war is going to be bigger than the last one. There's a little bit of a feel to this, like Return of the King with Gandalf and Pippin, sort of like the calm before the storm type of scene, right?
Yeah,
where they're kind of looking out at the clouds that are coming, and the war is coming, but like it's not happening quite yet, and there's just all this
board
foreboding.
is set, the pieces are moving.
Yes, right. So she's feeling this way. She's feeling a sense of foreboding. She's feeling like, something could go really wrong. And, he's talking about this war is going to be bigger than the last one, but you'll be okay, right? Like, you have the blessing of the Phoenix. He doesn't really know how to respond to that. It starts getting cold, and he sort of reaches out as if he's going to, like, kind of pull her in to keep her warm, but then he thinks better of it.
Because at least in part, they're talking about war, and she's like, a war's coming, isn't it? And war never ends, does it? No, it doesn't ever end. And this one's going to be worse than the last one. And, like, just the cycle. They're, like, caught in the cycle, where he had mentioned, I thought the last war we fought was going to be the last war to be fought.
Yes.
And everyone thinks that.
Yes, everyone always thinks that.
And it's never true.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of, as teenagers, they're just learning this is how the world works.
Yep.
And it sucks.
Exactly. And then the next day, they're setting out. We get introduced to the two soldiers who will be accompanying Clive, and their names are Wade and Tyler. And this is too obvious a thing for the developers to have not thought of it.
Biggs.
But yes. Everyone's like, why are they not called Biggs and Wedge? Like,
Biggs
why?
and Wedge. I don't know why.
Clearly there was a purposeful choice to not do that, because it is literally too obvious.
Wade is almost Wedge.
Almost.
But
Tyler's not even close.
Bit too different.
But you kind of think like this would be the right opportunity. These are exactly the character types that would be named Big and Wedge in a classic Final Fantasy game.
A classic one.
Maybe there's going to be other characters later, because there's more important characters in Final Fantasy XIV named Biggs and Wedge. They're not like part of your group at the beginning that just die,
the throwaway
like
characters.
The old games were. They're like more important, so maybe they're saving more important characters to call Biggs and Wedge later.
Well, I'll tell you what, there is a Cid in this game, and so they are definitely, it's not like they're abandoning the reuse of old names.
No. So, but yeah, it did puzzle me at first, like, Wade and Tyler, there's no way they're called, there's no way you did that. the obvious choice was Biggs and Wedge, but they didn't.
Can't believe it.
But they're going to come with you, and so I don't have too many notes.
No, for the goblins and the Morble,
it's kind of just more gameplay tutorial.
Yeah,
it's more just introducing the Blight a little bit further.
Yeah,
because it's like, what they were really surprised to find. I mean, they're surprised goblins are there in the first place. What they're really surprised to find is the Morble, the monster that they find there. That was a huge surprise to them.
Those things aren't supposed to be this far south.
That's crazy. Yeah. And so, as he turns away after they've slain it, Clive sort of whispers under his breath, like, damned Blight. Like, this is way worse than I thought it was.
Yes.
And it's sort of, again, hitting home on the imperative nature that they get this Drake's Breath Mother Crystal.
Yeah.
Like, it's now or never kind of a thing. Like, they feel their hand is being forced to go take this thing.
To go to war. And that is, war is often the result of scarcity.
Yeah.
Do you think that in economic terms?
Yeah.
Right. So
the fight
this
over
is no
resources.
different. Yeah, limited resources. Well, you got to take what's yours.
Exactly.
Okay. The overworld looks sweet, by the way.
I like it a lot.
There's like a big footprint. It looks like a footprint.
Yeah.
The way the lakes kind of show up. But it looks nice. We kind of talked about that in our a couple months ago. We did a video.
Yeah.
They showed this. It's got that feel of like being a little miniature.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice. I like
it. Yeah. I think it looks pretty cool too. So now we get to Phoenix Gate.
Yep.
And as far as like describing what happens in the scene, everybody's drinking and making merry.
Yeah, which is cool. I love the songs.
I did like
They almost sound like hymns, like the way that they're singing it and the way that it's praises to the Phoenix and to the king, and they've got their beer, and it feels very English. Like it's got a very English feel to it. I love it.
And Wade
telling
is there,
stories,
talking about how Clive slew the Morble, and the thousands of eyes, and just exaggerating it like beyond belief, right?
It's so good.
And it's interesting that Clive does not join them for this
he
party. He stays away from it, and they mention that. I think Murdoch is talking with Tyler, who is saying like, how does it feel to see your people, succeed in something like this? It's great. If only he would, deign to join us one of these days.
Yep.
Right. So Clive is recluse. He doesn't really make friends among the company.
Yeah.
He sticks to himself. And I guess you could see why. His whole life is sort of framed as this failure. Right. And he wants to do his duty. He wants to protect his brother. He loves his brother, but he just feels like he doesn't belong where he's been placed. But he also doesn't belong among his noble family. He's kind of caught in between two places. He doesn't feel like he belongs in either one.
Yep.
And so he just isolates himself. And I really kind of, could feel that.
Yeah.
So Joshua is speaking with Elwin. And I loved this question that he asks, right? So Elwin is like, are you not feeling well? Like, what's the problem? He's like, no, I'm fine. I'm just kind of tired. Like, Dad, why are we the only ones that get to be dominants? That doesn't seem fair.
Right.
And I love his avoidance of that question.
Yeah.
His attempt to answer it is to not answer the real question, which it's not fair that only our family gets to have this power.
Well, so that's how it was read initially.
Yeah.
But as the king begins to answer the question, I kind of started to see it in a different way.
Yes.
Which is, why are we the ones that are cursed with the dominant? I kind of, because I had that same reading at first, but as they discuss it and as he's looking really upset, it seems like he's not happy to be the dominant.
Yeah, he's not.
In which case, when he's saying it's unfair that our family is the dominant, why do we have to be the dominants? He's really asking is, why do I have to be the dominant?
Yeah.
I don't want to be. It's not fair. Why can't we share the responsibility with other families, other people? Why does it have to be us?
Well, and because that's his answer. His answer is we do share it. And apparently, according to what Velha was saying earlier, he does share the power of the Phoenix with his brother.
Yes, with his brother.
And so it's their responsibility to channel that power and share it with the people of Rosario, right?
So in that case, it's through that response that I slowly started to realize maybe
it's
the question was a little bit different. Yeah. But it can be read both ways.
Yeah. So
because as we've said before, it is a blessing and a curse. It is both.
Oh, for sure.
So you can read that both ways.
All responsibility and power comes
it's true.
with that. It can fame, like to any degree, people seek it, and then when they get that, it's like you lose your privacy. You lose like there's all kinds of things you can't do anymore that normal people can do. Yeah. So there is a burden that comes with it, right? There's definitely two sides of that coin. But anyway, Elwin kind of gets up to go sing with the men and join with them in their reverie. And then Joshua slips out and goes and talks with Clive. So we get another kind of good scene between them. And I really liked the way that Clive expressed his jealousy, right?
Yeah.
He says, I'm jealous of you, but not in like a malicious, like, oh, it's not fair kind of way, but just in I just envy that, the people really believe in you the way that they do, and they don't believe in me. And Joshua turns that around in this really, really nice way. It's like, they don't believe in me. The men actually like you. They're singing your praises in there, right? And he mentioned this to his father earlier. They really like Clive, don't they?
Yeah.
I don't think Joshua feels like people like
him. Yeah.
They just sort of fear and respect the power of the dominant, not Joshua the person.
Yes, yeah. Whereas Clive is free from that.
Yeah. Clive, they actually like him. They're in there telling stories about him and how cool he was when he killed that marble.
That's true.
And that's what Joshua envies.
See, and that's so funny. So they both envy the different aspects to each other, and this kind of gives credence to the previous reading that I'd mentioned before about how it's unfair. Joshua wishes that Clive was the one who got the phoenix.
Yes.
He doesn't like it that he's the one who gets it.
Yes.
It's weird. He's the second-born. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. It doesn't seem to make sense to him. But that's how it is, and he kind of wishes that Clive could have that so that he could maybe just kind of like be a normal person.
He doesn't feel like he has connections with people the way that Clive does. So that's one downside. He doesn't feel like he has the strength to lead the way that he sees Clive's strength. And his brother has lived a scorned life, and he doesn't like to see that because he loves his brother. So all of these things are downsides. Why couldn't it have been you? It should have been you. It doesn't make any sense that it was me.
Yeah.
And so he has a lot of lines in this as he expresses that I really liked, a way of sort of turning it around, because you're sitting there feeling bad for Clive and his situation, but it's like Joshua's is not necessarily better.
Yeah.
In some ways, it may even be worse.
It's a similar thing to what I was saying about the king-queen relationship, right? Like, what would it be better, to be the dominant itself, or to be kind of like the person next to the dominant?
Yes.
Like, and Joshua, of course, Clive is like, oh, I'd rather be the dominant. But as the dominant, Joshua is like, no freaking thank you, please.
Yeah.
Like, somebody else should do this. It's way too much on me. I'd much rather be the friend of the dominant or the brother of the dominant than the dominant himself.
Right.
There's just too much there. It's like his agency is gone. And this is how a lot of the, like, this is probably how the Duke feels. This is probably how the king or the emperor or any of these people feel. They don't have that agency that they thought they would have.
Yeah.
Like, or a celebrity, as you were talking about. You think that comes with all of this agency. Like, they can do whatever they want. It's like, no, they freaking can't.
They can't.
They have too many things to manage, and they can't, if they want to maintain their position, they can't. They actually have less agency than just a regular peasant.
This goes back to what we were talking about in the Nier Automata podcast about it's better to live in moderate poverty.
Blessed be moderate poverty.
Yeah, right? Like, that's
Nietzsche.
Actually, when all said and done, like the more favorable position in which to live your life, because you think you want all of these things that come with fame and wealth.
Right.
But there's too much to lose when you get that. And then protecting that, or protecting the people in your life whom you're now responsible to take care of because you have this wealth or this power or this fame or whatever. It just leads to, it's the whole more money, more problems proverb, I guess, right? Like, it's exactly the case. Like, it comes with a whole new set of responsibilities, of pressure, and you lose a lot of your agency. You lose a lot of your freedom. And so, a lot of people still say, well, I'll take the money. But, like,
a lot of people in a tough spot would say that.
You don't
But
you just don't understand
people
it
who win the lottery, it often ruins their lives.
Well, yeah, now it's like, oh, crap. Like, I got to make sure that, like, nobody knows I won this money. Like,
that would be the smart thing to do. Most people are like, I got to tell everyone that I won. And that's what shoots them in the foot.
Yeah, and it leads to all kinds of problems. So,
yeah.
Anyway, it's a good scene between them. Joshua leaves to go rest, and this is where everything turns around. So we have a scene where a cart kind of comes up. Well, you took your time, didn't you, with the supplies? And you can see it coming from a mile away.
Yes.
And it makes you question a lot of things. First of all, why are there like 2 people like watching the gate?
Yeah, and that's it.
And everyone else is just like drinking.
It was way too easy for them to get into that keep. It was way too easy. Yeah.
Way too freaking easy.
Now, that being said, they also had infiltrated the ranks of people ahead of time.
Yeah.
They had people on the inside.
Right.
It presumably could have or should have been even easier than this, actually.
Sure.
Because they could have had their inside people kind of take care of that.
Right.
But instead, they did the oldest trick in the book, and it worked.
Yeah. This is anyway. Yeah, you're right.
Convenient.
Like they have the armor of the Rosarian soldiers.
It would have been better if they had their infiltrators open the gate than to do it the way that they did.
To slit the throats of the dudes. Yeah, we put our agents in position to open the gate.
There you go.
I would have liked that. That's a great point. I would have liked that way
much better. Instead, it's like, we like our wine so much that we're willing to, like, even though it's a night delivery and I can't see your face and I don't know who you are and my torchlight doesn't reveal much, it's wine, we're thirsty, like we want to drink, let's let's have a party, bring in the wine, right?
Yeah.
Now, in some ways I can see that. Some people get excited about their wine. That's another thing that wasn't brought up, that we didn't bring up, but that Clive, he doesn't, he says cakes and ale are not, I've
never taken to
cakes and ale. Yeah. So Clive doesn't drink, he's not a drinker, but everyone else is a huge drinker, right? But Clive kind of, prefers to avoid that.
Yeah.
And you can see that a little bit here, but I still would have preferred it to have gone a different way.
Right. But I like your idea, though, of just they've infiltrated them to the point where the dudes watching the gate are just their own inside guys. I like that way better.
It may have tipped their hand a little bit early to that, because that's a reveal that happens later. But there's a way they could have gotten around that.
I agree with that. But they get in. All hell breaks loose.
Yep.
A bunch of soldiers from the Empire arrive and start slaughtering people. You kind of take over Joshua's point of view now at this point. So you're playing as Joshua as Wade comes in and says, like, Your Grace, look, we got to get you out of here. And so he's got some fire abilities and magic and stuff. But, it takes a lot out of him. Like, clearly, he has to, like, recover for a second after he's used a spell. And so there's some, whatever his illness is that he's got, it's, like, really affecting him.
But he's powerful, too.
Yeah, so they make their way. They finally meet up with Elwin and Clive. Everyone comes back together. It's like, okay, you guys head over there. Well, they're chocobo to the stables. Like, this, I don't know who was supposed to meet them there. And then you get out. And then I'll hold the enemy here while you make your escape. And Joshua, no, you got to come with us. Like, I can't just leave you here. And like, no, this is my duty, like you were saying earlier, to die for as a shield of
that's his whole
dominant. Right?
That's his whole purpose of life.
He's ready to fulfill that.
Yep.
So you break away from them, Elwin and Joshua, who go to the stables. You take over as Clive for a while. There's an awesome boss fight here against a dragoon.
Yeah,
one
that's
of the
cool.
Imperial dragoons. I loved that shot.
Yeah.
Where it just sort of like you take out like a bunch of soldiers and then it kind of pulls up as he's just like standing like, with one foot.
That's right.
It's that classic pose though.
From
the Final Fantasy IV logo. Where Kane, who is the dragoon of that game, with the spear, and he's standing on one foot. It's the same pose, so it's a callback to that.
It reminded me also, I can't remember what they're called, the Knights of the Zodiac in FF12?
Yes.
Kind of a similar thing, just you've got just the way he's dressed mostly, but the dragoon kind of look and the...
Yeah, the Empire in Final Fantasy XIV also has that same. They all have masks like the judges.
Oh, the judges. That's who I'm
12.
thinking of. The judges. Yeah.
So they've got a similar look to them. But so you're doing this battle, and then there's a couple of things that happen here. There's some like headaches that are bothering Clive, and he looks out and he sees a robed person, someone with like a hood on.
That's right.
Right, and he's like, "Oh, what's going on?"
But he didn't really see that person, right?
I don't know. So Clive, he's having some kind of like pain, headache. He sort of like passes out almost a little bit when he sees this. This is a very Square Enix sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's Kingdom Hearts or whether it's Final Fantasy X.
Or the
there's
FF7
like the
remake.
hooded guy, right?
Kingdom Hearts.
Who the protagonist sees, and it's like, oh, who are you? And he's like this mysterious
and then
person.
he kind of disappears. Yeah.
And he disappears.
Yeah.
This is very much a Square thing. But
I got the feeling that he didn't actually see this actual person. Because as soon as he's like, on my head, and then he doesn't look back, he just...
Yeah, anyways, it's just kind of like the guy's gone. But then when he feels the pain later and he starts the transformation into Ifrit, he sees a figure of like a silhouette of a fire being.
Yes, which I took to be this same
I thought it was the same guy, but I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
I don't know if that's the case. So I have no idea what to make of this hooded guy or this fiery figure that he sees before the transformation happens. I was also very pleasantly surprised by the end of this scene, where it seemed to me that Clive was not in the body of Ifrit, but in the perspective of Torgal, watching Ifrit tear Phoenix apart. So that brought up a whole new question to me.
The perspectives confused me, for sure.
It almost is like this being took Clive's body, and Clive went into Torgal or something, and then used Clive's body to become Ifrit to kill Phoenix. But I have no idea if that's like the right way to interpret what's going on here. It was very confusing.
Yeah.
Because it seemed clear to me. Clive became Ifrit. I've seen the commercials. He calls Ifrit. He's the dominant of Ifrit, according to everything I knew coming into this.
Yeah.
But then why is he fighting and trying to kill Joshua? Well,
that doesn't make sense, other than he's lost
control.
But he had control enough to fight.
But he's literally screaming to stop,
as if he's a third-person perspective.
You see it.
Yeah, you're right.
Like it's a first-person perspective, and he says something about Torgal beforehand too. Let's see if I can pull this up.
Oh,
so here it is. He's like beating the fetch out of him, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes black. And then you hear, in fact, I don't hear anything, but you hear him saying, no, stop, Torgal? See the question, Torgal? And then you see the eyes of a dog. It's like the colors are not...
You're right. Oh, I didn't think about that.
Because dogs don't have the same color spectrum as humans do. So they see less colors than we do. So in this first-person perspective where he sees Phoenix being picked up by Ifrit and like pounded on and throat torn out and all this stuff, the perspective is a dog's eyes. And Clive is seeing through Torgal. This
what could
threw
that mean?
A huge wrench into like this whole thing. Now it's just a mystery. I have no idea. But clearly, originally I thought clearly Clive was in Ifrit's body doing this to killing his brother and screaming, no, stop. But it's like, I don't think that's happening. I think it's almost like Clive was ejected from his body.
And this other being kind of took over.
Torgal went into Torgal and watched whoever took over his body became Ifrit and killed Phoenix.
Well, you thought further along those lines than I did. I was just shocked enough to find out that he was Ifrit.
Yeah.
But the Torgal thing, that's crazy.
I know what's
thought
going
he was
on
just in this weird state of mind, and that's why everything looked weird.
Yeah.
That it was like a dreamlike state almost. And he was like, no. But if he was in Torgal, that means somebody has the power to take over the dominance. Somebody has the power to eject a spirit from a body and then inhabit that body and use the power of that body while the spirit can do nothing but watch.
Yeah.
That's
something like that seems to be going on here. Because
now, how did that person who ejected him know that he had Ifrit? He didn't even know that he had the power of Ifrit, right?
Yeah, right. That's another mystery.
Someone else knew what he didn't even know himself.
Yes, that he's the dominant of a second icon of fire, which is not supposed to exist at all.
Is he really the son of Annabelle and the Duke?
Don't know.
I wonder if he... Because that would be a way that someone can know. Is like, oh, we know whose kid he really is, and it's the Ifrit dominant's throne.
Yeah. Mix brings up a good point. Mix in the comments here. Warging, which is an ability in Game of Thrones where you project
bodies
you project into an animal.
Oh, okay.
Into a wolf or into a bird or something
cool.
like that, and you can go around like seeing things around, spying on people or whatever. could have been influenced by that. I don't know. But point is, the big reveals here, he's like, oh, like not now. You got to go protect him. You got to save. Because we skipped over that whole part. The guys who come up to help Elwin and Joshua escape are inside guys.
Yep, they're infiltrators.
And they basically just like kill his chocobo, and they're like, we can't let you leave.
Yeah.
And he's telling Joshua, okay, Joshua, like run away, like get away. And as he's turned his head to like tell his son to run away, he's approached and he's taken off guard.
Very fast.
Bam, just like beheaded right there.
Yeah, that was
all
crazy.
the blood sprays onto Joshua's face.
Oh, Elwin, before this too, Elwin muttered some sick spell. Oh, wait a second, this is interesting. Elwin muttered a spell to an owl.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Sent the
as
owl
like
to
a
the
messenger
castle.
Or something.
But now that we're talking about,
yeah,
animals and whatnot.
Warging.
Yeah, warging. He seemed to be able to convey a message to the owl pretty quickly, although he didn't seem to inhabit the owl. So
no. And then they bring that owl who's dead, and they just toss it at his feet.
Yeah, they end up killing it.
Yeah, they killed the owl before it could get away with the message. So anyway, Joshua, I loved this line. I think this line in particular was kind of cool. He's remembering the conversation he just had with Clive, where you have to protect. He's something about you have to protect father or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's your duty.
He couldn't do it.
Your duty.
You had to.
He's like, I have to. I had to.
And I didn't.
Past tense.
Yeah, past tense. It's over.
And it's like it's gone. Like in the blink of an eye, it just totally like before you could even. It's just in shock at how did that happen? How did that just happen in front of me? What the heck? And it's at this point where his sort of desperation comes out, and the phoenix begins to sort of emerge from him, and the wings growing. And they're just like, oh, like kill him now, right? And then it's like, oh no, the Eikon is here, like run away, like there's no way we're fighting an Eikon. Yeah. And then just out of nowhere, this second Eikon of fire emerges from Clive, and I really love how Murdoch is like watching this, like a second Eikon of fire. That's impossible.
That's impossible.
And then the fire from Ifrit just like burns him to a crisp, and he just dies right there. Yeah. Like he's just like blown away by that fire. It's just like, what the heck? And so this is a big mystery. There should not be a second Eikon of fire. There should only be one Eikon for each element, it seems.
Yeah.
And so Phoenix and Ifrit start this big battle. We've already mentioned, we weren't necessarily the biggest fans of the mechanics of this fight.
Yeah.
But the result of the scene and the way that Ifrit is like just sort of tearing Phoenix apart, and Clive is watching.
That was really
it's super
difficult.
Brutal stuff.
Yeah, it was brutal.
It's tough
and he's
to
shouting
watch.
the whole time, like no.
Yeah. And the way he kills him too is like picks him up by the neck and just like impales him straight through with his claw.
Yeah.
Like, you murderer! I'll kill you! I'll effing kill you!
Yep.
But the big part on the back of this is you got some soldiers, Imperial soldiers, kind of going through the aftermath of this,
killing everyone, make sure they're dead.
Making sure they're all dead. And Anabella is there, and it's like, oh my gosh, she was involved in this, but she doesn't seem that broken up at all about Joshua. She says the words.
She's like, oh darn it. Dang it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Dang it, my kid.
That's pretty much it. And this leads me to also believe that the reason she's not in anguish the way her words suggest she should be, because, Joshua was my world, and now he's gone, is what she says. But she says it in this way of like, oh, darn. I hope that the Emperor has a place for me in the new world he's building.
Yeah.
It was so cold and so
very
heartless
cold.
that it's just like, holy crap, like even Joshua she didn't really care about. But that does lead me to think with the Phoenix and the Rising that she knows something.
He'll come back.
That he might be coming back, right? But without saying that, because the game doesn't want to just say that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that also diminishes the stakes
it would kind of give away
this scene.
Something. Yes.
But I think there's clearly something going on there. I think that Joshua's not dead. He's dead, but he's coming back.
I can't imagine that was her actual reaction.
Yes.
But there's something really good, though.
Oh, sure.
The soldiers around her called him, they called him Hellfire.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they said the Hellfire.
He was maybe the cinder block shielded
shooting.
him from the flames or whatever. That's why Clive survived her. But the Hellfire is the term for like the big attack that Ifrit does in all the Final Fantasy games.
Oh, in all the Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, Hellfire is its big fire.
Well, it's just interesting in light of what Annabelle said previously, where she said, I would brave hell itself to see my darling boy.
Yes.
This makes me think just those two things together, coupled with her weird reaction and just
that she knew
what's wrong. I wonder if Clive came from an affair with somebody else. That Clive is not the Duke's son, but may still be her son. Or if Clive's adopted, or if Clive's just the Duke's son.
That's an interesting
I don't
thought.
know. But the reason why she doesn't like Clive at all, it would make a lot more sense if she was like, either she knows that he's just not hers, or she knows that he's the thing that can supplant the Phoenix.
Well, or that he's the source of the hell that she has to brave to get to her darling boy.
Exactly. In which case, she's like, no, the Phoenix, we're the Phoenix people. She has an inkling that Clive is going to kill Joshua. Yes. And that's why she resents him and hates him so much. And she's like, anyways, I don't know. Maybe she's just a bad guy. I don't know. Maybe she's just a bad person.
It's really interesting that Clive I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
Clive
I didn't
might be the result of an affair between her and someone else other than Elwin.
In which case,
that could be crazy.
In which case, the person she had the affair with could be the one who knows that he's Ifrit.
The dominant of Ifrit who passed that to him.
Yes.
So he got the power of hellfire, the Ifrit dominant power from some unknown person.
Yeah.
That could be crazy.
But that person knows. That would be crazy. We're speculating.
Maybe that person is the hooded figure.
Yes,
who knows,
exactly.
right?
That's his real dad or something. I mean, he looks so much like the Duke.
He does, and I think that might be the sleight of hand.
Well, the likelihood is that it's the Duke's the one who had an affair with another person or something like that. I don't know. And she has to just pretend that it's her kid.
I don't know if that's where it's going, but that would be
I don't know
cool.
either. But we just threw a few ideas out there, and we're going to find out pretty soon whether any of them are right. But
so at first she's like, no, just kill him, right? She has obviously no regard for life. But then she says, wait. As my husband never tired of telling me he's a good soldier.
Put him on the front lines.
Put him on the front lines as one of the slave soldiers of the Empire.
Yeah.
So.
Now, anytime, if you're anybody out there who is who is evil, is really evil, just note this. Anytime an evil person is like, I could kill them right now, but I'd rather make them suffer. It always backfires. They're going to escape. They're going to find you. They're going to kill you. Just kill them. Just kill them right then and there.
Don't monologue about it. Just do it.
Don't monologue. Don't try to prolong the stuff. Oh, I'll make you watch that. No, just kill him right then and there. Do it. That's that.
Yep. And then even her servants are slain. Their throats are cut.
Yeah, seemingly away. At her command. It's almost like she doesn't want
anybody to know from the Rosaria what she did.
Right.
To be
except,
left alive.
I mean, you have to have some conspirators.
Yeah.
But none of the, quote, good guys, right?
Yeah. And that pretty much brings us to the end of what we're going to cover for this podcast, this first episode. It's a long one. Thank you for joining us. I have no idea. Usually we do this in a sort of a format where we tell people where to play up to next time.
Yeah, we don't freaking know.
No clue how far I'm going to get versus how far you're going to get. So it's whoever gets the least far, that's as far as we go in the next episode.
Exactly. Play 3-ish, maybe 4 hours.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. I think generally it's between a 3 and a 5 hour sort of mark, depending on how much is in there to analyze. But that's usually about how far we get each week. So that's the plan.
Know what? I'm going to recant. If you're evil, yes, leave the person alive to continue suffering. That's actually a very good idea. It will never backfire. Definitely explain your plan. Make them suffer for 20 years.
Especially if it's me.
Don't
definitely,
kill them.
Don't kill me and make me suffer as much as possible. And I definitely won't escape to.
No, definitely not. I would never even think to try to do something like that. So definitely do that.
Appreciate you guys for watching and looking forward to the next chapter.
Yeah, me too.
There are a lot of legitimately interesting mysteries here.
Yeah.
And us having talked about it now, I'm really interested to see where they go with some things. So.
What's going to happen? And this game it's very good and it's very compelling. I want to know what happens next.
Yeah, it's good for sure. I'm ready for the next part. So we'll see you next week.